Good morning. What a great way to start. Truth be told, as many of you know, we have a fire drill today, and that was Jonathan's postlude, and I said, well, we're not going to miss out on that today, so I asked him, can you make that the prelude instead? And he obliged, so thank you, Jonathan. And thank you for being here. We always love having you here. Good morning, everybody. I'm Reverend Christopher Rowe. I serve in this season as the acting senior minister here at Fountain Street Church. And on behalf of everyone who calls this Cathedral of Love and this Temple for Peace their spiritual home, welcome to this worship service this morning. We have a lot going on today. We have a lot going on today, and so I'm going to do something unusual and share some announcements with you this morning. As you heard me mention earlier, there is a fire drill at the end of today's service. It's looking dark out, so I'm praying it won't rain. But we have a fire drill that will be pretty obvious when the alarm goes off near the end, and we will exit the sanctuary and go across the street over to the Grand Rapids Community College Park. If you are in the back half, please exit out those doors and go to the park. If you're towards the front, like the choir and some of our board members are, please exit through the fire door out to the side. It's been many moons since we've done this, and so it's truly a practice of a drill, and maybe we'll refine it next spring. So thank you for your involvement in that. We will make it clear as to what to do going from there, but that will conclude today's worship once the fire drill is complete. I also want to share with you that we have a lot of powerful and beautiful things happening here next week and weekend. Some of that is going to be announced by our stewardship team members in just a moment, and so I'll skip past that to Monday, October 24th. There will be a rally for reproductive freedom here in the sanctuary, Monday, October 24th at 7 p.m. This is a hugely, hugely important event, not only for Fountain Street Church and for Grand Rapids, but for all of Michigan. We will have representatives from Planned Parenthood, NARAL, Pro-Choice America, Reproductive Freedom for All. We'll have clergy from all kinds of faith traditions here, and we will be rallying and filling this Cathedral of Love in support not only of reproductive freedom, but to show in solidarity that not only Fountain Street Church, but West Michigan as a whole has a large contingency of people who want to support access to reproductive justice in Michigan, which is on the ballot in November. And so I do hope that you'll come to that, invite your neighbors, invite your friends. This is a big moment for Fountain Street Church to show up and be a cathedral to all people, especially on an issue that's very important to this church. Additionally, we have an event this afternoon, right at noon. You can join at the park across the street, and that will be canvassing for reproductive freedom for all. We've had representatives here that are talking about the issues at stake and the ways in which Fountain Street Church can support getting the vote out. And so at noon, which conveniently is where we will evacuate to, there will be people there that you can connect with, and they'll be very easy to identify. And then if you wish, we hope you'll join us in some canvassing around the community. We should have an announcement from stewardship. I'm looking at one there and one there. We should have a stewardship announcement.
So the Stewardship Committee is a very quiet committee. Not a lot of people volunteer for it, although we'd love to have people come. We've been meeting for a long period of time, and one of our goals was, in addition to conducting the annual pledge campaign, which a lot of people participate in, we've realized through the years that not everybody participates in giving to the church in that particular manner. So we've been trying to provide people all kinds of opportunities to give to the church. We had all kinds of plans last spring, and everything was wonderful until the pandemic just didn't stop. So we sort of had to put all our plans on hold. And so, but now things are different, and we're ready to rock and roll. And we've got a couple events coming up this coming week that we're ready. And I'm going to let Kathy talk about the first one, called the Halloween Hop.
Good morning. My name is Kathy Higgins, and I'm honored to serve on our stewardship committee with Wynn Irwin, Bob Chapla, Melissa Jose, Christopher Rowe, and Paul Arnold. We are so pleased to invite you to the Halloween Hop Dance next Saturday, October 22nd from 7 to 10 p.m. Now, full disclosure. Halloween was never my favorite holiday. When my children were young, I went through much anxiety about their costumes. Making something original and creative to keep them warm and dry in the unpredictable weather of late October. So if you are anything like me, the Halloween hop dance may not be as inviting to you, and you may feel a little reluctant to attend. So let me reframe this event for you. Have you noticed all the luscious and beautiful colors of the falling leaves outside? They are beautiful. They're everywhere. You can't drive anywhere without looking up at the beautiful sky and seeing the brilliant colors of leaves. Well, I'm reframing this event for myself to be a fall harvest dance. Please plan to attend to enjoy wine, signature cocktails, good food, lively music, and an opportunity to meet old friends and make new ones. You do not have to wear a costume. You do not have to cover your face with a mask. You don't even have to dance, but you may get caught up in the energy of the moment that you decide to dance as if no one is watching, because that's the only way I dance. So please look up the Friday Flash. You can make your reservation and buy your ticket soon, and we will see you there at the Fall Harvest Dance.
Thanks, Kathy. And James Taylor, God bless him, is going to be our DJ. So he's got all kinds of plans for us. So be there. We want to see your faces. We don't care if you dance. We don't care if you wear a costume. We just want to see you. The whole purpose of the Stewardship Committee has been getting people together again as many times and as often as we can and make a few dollars along the way. The other thing I want to just mention, and we've announced it, but I want to make sure that you remember, is a week from today, 4 p.m., we're going to have Hocus Pocus, the original Hocus Pocus movie here. So bring your grandchildren, bring your friends, or just come and enjoy some popcorn, a little intro music on the organ just to set the scene. We're excited to bring the whole community, and that's not just a Fountain Street event. It is a fundraiser, but it's a movie right here in the sanctuary, and we're excited about it. So please come to the Hop, please come to the film, and have fun next weekend. Thank you.
Isn't it good to see this church filling up with activity again? I have one more invitation, and that is that at 1 p.m. in the chapel, there will be a new series called the Social Justice Film Series. You are all invited to attend at 1 p.m. in the chapel next door, and that will be the Green Book. There will be popcorn and water, and you are invited to just come and engage in not only that film, but in some discussions afterwards. So please consider joining in the inaugural event for the Social Justice Film Series. Friends, I say it every week, you have nowhere to be but here right now. And sometimes here can look a little different every week. It's one of the challenging but beautiful things about Fountain Street Church. This week we have a very unique Sunday service planned. You'll notice that I'm joined by not the Supreme Court on the bench, but it looks like it. That's actually Amy Preston's joke, not mine. But the Senior Minister Search Committee, who has some storytelling to offer you this morning. And then later you'll hear from the Governing Board. Lots to keep track of today. But in this moment, you have nowhere else to be, and so I invite you into this invitation to worship. I invite you to hear it as a prayer or a meditation. So allow yourselves to be comfortable for this next hour. And join me in the posture of prayer that's best for you. And hear this challenge as an invitation. This morning, I challenge us to think about a different kind of God. What about a God who doesn't believe in having it all figured out? Or about this idea of one single, tidy story? What instead about a God or a divine being that changes day after day and never stops asking us how to love every messy, complicated, and seemingly contradictory side of ourselves? What about a God who has been so many different things and so many different ways? One that has always been transitioning and changing. One that has been taking on new flesh, shedding away what hurts, claiming what frees, finding a fresh way to show us the divine that we has always been all along. And then everything that's kept us from living it out as a community. What about a God that is tired of being misgendered or misrepresented or simply misunderstood? What about a God that isn't interested in excuses any longer and starts to get a little rude about it and doesn't mind asking us to try a little bit harder and asks us to let go of everything that we are more loyal to than love itself? What about a God who spends their time dancing with strangers until 2 a.m., or cooking a hot meal for the turned-away youth or the disenfranchised neighbor right on our streets, or protesting to abolish imprisonment, or doing anything that seems countercultural but never steps foot in a house of worship? What about a God who's queer? Queer as in politically, as in strange and different and proud of it, as in about all the things of love and bodies and liberation and solidarity and peace and justice queer? What about a God who is found in the flesh of the living among us and within us, and everyone who has been denied a kind word, a warm hug, a safe bathroom, a marriage ceremony, a friendly smile, access to health care or a home or a roof over their head, access to a faith community, asylum, safety at night or security during the day, or a nation that welcomes them at their borders, or just basic respect and dignity. My friends, listen for that God this morning. In this hour and in this time of worship, where you will find God, I promise you. You will find God in the stories you hear and in the silence we keep, where you will find divinity and the radical honesty and in the gracious invitation you will hear, and where you will find the holy in fierce conversations and radical calls towards being a different kind of community, a different kind of family, a different kind of church, and a different kind of love. So, my friends, let us gather this morning in pursuit of a different kind of God. Bring your offerings. Bring everything you have in your hands. Whisper your prayers together. Offer up your laments before all that is holy and sacred in this hour. Because you have nowhere else to be but here right now and this work to share together. Welcome to worship. Thank you. You may be seated. Hear the words of our reading this morning in ways that illuminate our time with one another. Be patient toward all that is unsolved in your heart, and try to love the questions themselves, like locked rooms and like books that are now written in a very foreign tongue. Do not seek the answers which cannot be given you because you would not be able to lice them. And the point is to live everything. Live the question now. Perhaps you will then gradually, without noticing it, live along some distant day into the answer. Here ends our reading.
Good morning. It's good to see all of you here today. I am Natalie Beversluis, and I am one of your Senior Minister Search Committee members. Today, we are going to give you an overview of our experiences and some of our reflections on that. But first, let me introduce our members so that you might recognize them if you run into them. First, we have Paul Arnold. We have Judy Botts. We have Kathleen Delp Higgins. We have Marie Maher Penny. We have Mary Peterson. We have Carol Townsend. We have Chip Wall. And we also have a 9th member who is unable to be with us today because of previous commitments, Angie Walters. So with that, Kathleen is going to come up and give us an introduction. Thank you.
The Senior Minister Search Committee started meeting right away in June, and we met once a week all through the summer. We had initial conversations with Reverend Christopher, and he did express an interest in the permanent position. We told him we would figure out our process and keep him and the congregation updated. We started to discuss our process and looked at the UUA, Unitarian Universalist Association, and what they do for their searches. We talked to the previous Senior Minister Search Committee, and we discussed what information would be helpful in order to bring Christopher to a vote with the most consensus. We did not want the people to feel he got this job by default. However, we got lost in the weeds trying to create a survey and then update a job description that reflected the survey results. We got bogged down trying to make our case for Christopher and trying to make this a perfect process. In trying to make a process to please everyone, we lost sight of the fact that we already had 4 years with Christopher, and he had demonstrated extraordinary perseverance, resilience, creativity, and commitment to Fountain Street Church. We dropped the ball in communicating with him during our process. It became a process for an external candidate and not reflective of the relationship we have with Christopher, our internal candidate. It was one more example of our church not being willing to change with the times or to find unique solutions to unique problems. At this point, Reverend Christopher withdrew his name from the search. He realized that this process, in addition to other church issues which we plan to explore, demonstrated that Fountain Street Church is not ready for him or for any other senior minister until we do some internal work as a community. The Senior Minister Search Committee will be ready to resume the search for a senior minister, but that can only happen if we work together as a community to learn and grow into a more self-reflective congregation that's willing to change with the times.
So we've put together some frequently asked questions that most of us have heard from you people and thought you might be wondering about. We're going to try to shed some light on what's happened in our search committee. For the first question, why did the Senior Minister Search Committee feel the need to create a process instead of putting Reverend Christopher up for a vote immediately? Carol Townsend will shed some light on this.
I'm going to try to shed some light on this. First, let me say that every member of this committee took very seriously our job to find a good candidate for senior minister for this church. We knew the church needed to find stability due to, among other things, Mariella's unexpected departure and the havoc that COVID wreaked on us. We have met every week for the last 5 months trying to go through and do our job. We felt a huge responsibility to do this search correctly. We wanted to make sure we did our due diligence, which is whatever it meant to each of us. So, as Kathy kind of outlined, when we first started meeting, we talked about looking for external candidates at the same time as internal candidates. And although we could do anything we wanted, Amy made that really clear at the beginning. There was no structure, anything that we had to follow. We did want, or what we did do is decide to follow the UUA guidelines that you should deal with the internal candidates first. So we met with Reverend Christopher, asked him if he were interested in applying for the position, and he said yes. So then again, why didn't we just put his name up to you for a vote at that point? And to me, there are kind of two major reasons that we didn't do that. The first one is that we felt we needed to do what previous senior minister search committees did. And again, that was like doing a survey, having a personality assessment done on the candidate, rewriting the job description, all those kinds of things. If we didn't do all of these tasks, we kind of felt like it would look like we were taking shortcuts or not being very thorough in what we were doing. We were very concerned about having a process that could justify our decisions. And then secondly, in addition to our need to develop some kind of process, we also felt that no matter what we did, a number of people would not be happy with that. So we tried to anticipate what some of those criticisms might be, and then to try and figure out ways to placate those. That sounds kind of crazy as I say that, actually, but that's what was going through our heads, because we knew there were already some members being critical of Christopher. And we wanted to make sure that, and it became very important to us, that we could justify to the congregation our decision to present Christopher to you. Clearly now, that this was mistakenly overly important to us. So in summary, I guess I would say that following a process somehow became more important than presenting a qualified candidate.
Next, we would like to share some examples of due diligence that bogged us down. Mary Peterson will share some of those with you.
The search committee is a microcosm of the church, and in working together to find a senior minister, our committee encountered some of the same challenges that we all face in becoming a healthy church community. Here are two examples from our experience. Both examples relate to holding space for more than one truth at the same time. Our first example, on the one hand, we had a strong sense of urgency. We had an acting senior minister, Reverend Christopher, who had already proven his leadership. So there was pressure to seize the moment, to offer Reverend Christopher the position now. We feared that if we took too much time, we might lose him. And we knew there were other churches out there looking, and the availability of good ministers are in short supply. This sense of urgency was met with a second truth, the responsibility to do due diligence. So we followed a process that included sending out a church survey to include input from you, the congregation. We revised and updated the senior minister's job description, and we sent an outreach letter to Christopher asking for references, a resume, and other documentation. So the steps we took to do due diligence took time and created tension because we were also holding on to this other truth, a sense of urgency to offer Christopher the position now. A second example of how we got bogged down was just being Fountain Streeters, our individualism. We Fountain Streeters are individuals who think for ourselves, right? And individualism can be a good thing. We challenge established beliefs and we challenge the status quo. But our individualism was challenged by another truth, the truth that comes with working as a team and building consensus. Again, we experienced the challenge of holding space for more than one truth. And as you know, Reverend Christopher declined our offer to apply for the position at this time. So for now, the search committee is taking a pause, but during this pause, we're still going to be working hard. But we need to take time so all of us can participate in creating a healthy church environment where our next senior minister can be successful. We believe that it's time for a pause so we can embrace the questions and then live our way into the answers.
Chip Wall is going to share what we learned from this process.
Good morning. So what have we learned through the process? Well, I think it goes without saying at this point in time that we've learned a lot and we're continuing to learn a lot. This process has brought along conflict that some of us haven't experienced in a few months. Long discussions, frustrations with each other, with each of us on the committee, and it's a way, I think, although frustrating, is a really good way to bring us all together to make the right decisions. We are allowed to make mistakes. We are allowed to go down the wrong paths. But I think it's also imperative that when we do that, we can honestly identify when we've done such, learn how to adjust, and then adjust. What more could be asked? So this is the work that we have ahead of us, not only for our congregation, but for us as a search committee. We looked at trends in ministry, and currently there is a crisis facing churches. We are clearly not alone in this struggle. 42% currently, a staggering 42% of ministers are leaving the ministry. When you couple that with the reality of declining church attendance, membership, and then this worldwide pandemic that we just went through, it's easy to see there are many issues, the same as many places of worship are facing at this current time. Ministers are burning out. They don't always engage in self-care. In our quest to find the right candidate and fulfill our charge of finding the right senior minister for this congregation, we brought the senior minister, we wanted to bring him up for a vote, but we've learned a couple of things, and the biggest thing that we've learned at this point in time is that two things can be true at the very same time. And I've heard Christopher say this before, and we've experienced it as a group. Two things can be true at the very same time. We wanted to follow those protocols from the past, but we have also realized that these could also be part of our problems moving forward. So what were we charged with? This is really boring, but I'm going to read it because it comes from our bylaws, Fountain Street bylaws, 6.4, Search Committee, Duties and Powers. Identify candidates. Employ the use of an outside professional as appropriate in the search process. Recommend one candidate for senior minister, and then notify the governing board to bring a special membership meeting to accept or to reject that nomination. 6.5, which follows right after, the dissolution of the search committee. The search committee shall dissolve when a senior minister is elected and accepts that call. Seems simple enough, wouldn't you agree? However, we invited and listened to our former search committee, who put in tons of work. They had lots of ideas and suggestions. They also shared with us their shared experiences and their recommendations. We've listened to countless congregants here in church, in our own individual circles. We've gotten suggestions. In fact, we've gotten suggestions in the produce department at D&W in Breton Village. Truly happened when somebody said, "Hey, Chip, have you got just a second?" So what have we learned? Honestly, we felt extremely rushed to come here today. It's been less than 2 weeks that we identified we were going to do this. We also felt uncomfortable doing this. We thought about postponing this until November because that would just be easier for us. But then we realized that we're falling into those very same old patterns that we have, wanting to make this a perfect, polished presentation. You're not going to find that here today. Our goal was and is to simply do the right thing for Fountain Street Church. We chose to be uncomfortable. We want to move ahead with authentic, honest, and yes, unpracticed beliefs and share our truths with you today as we understand them at today's point in time. The short answer is that the search committee failed to adapt to this unique situation that we had before us. We've had 4 years of shared experience with Reverend Christopher, during which we have gone through some of the most difficult and unprecedented circumstances we've ever faced in this church. Reverend Christopher has demonstrated extraordinary perseverance, resilience, and a commitment to Fountain Street Church, and most importantly, to each and every one of us here today and each and every one of you at home. He believes in Fountain Street. So in the beginning of our process, we recognized this was a unique situation, having an internal candidate. We discussed how we could do things differently. But as our meetings progressed, we lost sight of that unique circumstance and fell into those old patterns that we all know very well here, being overly concerned with replicating how we've always done things, rather than being open to some new ways of doing things and being paternalistic and attempting to protect not only Reverend Christopher, but the congregation from any conflict or dissent. This is an area we need to work on for sure. So the question you might be asking yourself right now is this the same group? It's the same question we've been asking individually, collectively as a group. What in the hell's happening next? Correct? We need you. So if you have questions, and I don't mean telling your friends about it and complaining about it, I mean real questions, please email us. We want your questions, your ideas, your suggestions. If it's negative, bring it on. If it's positive, bring it on. But bring it to us. We want your input. We were charged with doing what you want. We want to hear from you. The email address is fscsmsc, Fountain Street Church, Senior Minister Search, 2022@gmail.com. We'll have that number for you many, many times. It's our intention in the future to answer questions in the Friday Flash. So keep an eye open for the Friday Flash. If you're like me, it goes to my spam every week. Check your spam for the Friday Flash. You'll find it there. We want to have transparency, honesty, and openness, and we want to try to break some of the old patterns that are pretty well entrenched. Thank you.
So where do we go from here? Paul Arnold's going to share some thoughts.
Where does the search committee go from here? The short answer to that is we don't know yet. We have been asked by both the Reverend Christopher and the governing board to push the pause button for now. So for the time being, we will not be actively pursuing an outside candidate. After looking at other denominations, we decided that it is not a fair process for an outside candidate to be competing with a potential internal candidate who would have an obvious advantage. At the start, all 9 of us felt in our hearts that the Reverend Christopher was the best person to lead us into the future, but we did not want to presume that the rest of you felt the same way. We did not want you or Reverend Christopher to feel like he got the job by default, so we decided to follow established protocols that would apply to any candidate in order to make the strongest case to you. The survey that most all of you did participate in helped to shine a light on the kind of leadership that we currently think is most important to us. We are still trying to analyze that data, and we'll publish the complete results in the coming weeks. Since Reverend Christopher has decided not to apply for the position of senior minister at this time, we are left with more questions than answers. The Senior Minister Search Committee is not going away. We're assigned by the congregation to recommend a candidate for you to vote on, and we are determined to work toward that goal and only disband when that process is completed. We will continue to meet with each other on a regular basis to try to uncover the best strategies to move forward. Our experience of the last 5 months has taught us that we need to think beyond established protocols and develop a process that better reflects the situation at hand. We plan to meet with Reverend Christopher, members of the governing board, and possibly additional resources in order to determine the benchmarks that need to be in place before we should either continue to pursue Reverend Christopher as our inside candidate or to look elsewhere. The only thing that we can say for certain now is that we are not giving up, but we do ask for your patience and understanding as we try to move forward into the future. Thank you.
This is where you come in. How can the congregation be part of the healing so we can get ready for our next senior minister? Marie Petty will answer that question.
Good morning. The congregation is the whole answer to the healing that is needed at the church, because we are the church. We do this by building community and supporting our staff and each other in all we do here. From my own personal experience at Fountain Street Church, we are at our very best when we come together to support one another, and this feeling of community has been the best part for my family here. With 2 years of COVID, we are only getting back to being in community with each other again. For instance, yesterday, we had our first senior lunch in over 8 years, and this was a wonderful success to have so many of our older members who have not seen each other in a very long time, and it was a joy to see them all together again. We have a dance, the Halloween hop, or the fall dance, as Kathleen likes, coming up on the 22nd of October, and with a movie the day after on the 23rd, Hocus Pocus, for us and the general public to enjoy. These will be fundraisers for our church and would be great to see strong support for all the efforts involved. The Choice Fund will be having an event on the 9th of November, hopefully to celebrate a win in the election the day before. Women's Association and Parents Circle are bringing back the quiche lunch after 10 years of absence. Trinkets and Treasures will be back in December, along with Sticky Sunday and so much more, with so many caring people behind them organizing them. You can see there are so many plans for events and workshops, but these are only truly successful if we show up and support them. We have all been in a time where we did not have a choice to be a part and as we were in a worldwide pandemic, keeping us at home. But now it is time to come together again and help lead our church through this time of learning and growth. It has been said, what has Fountain Street Church done lately? I say to you, come join us as we embrace our future and do some much needed work in this church and in this city. If there ever were a group of people, I would proudly stand beside every single one of you. If you have any questions, our email will be posted in the Friday Flash, and we will be available for questions afterwards. We have some exciting opportunities coming up to learn, and Amy is going to share those with you. Thank you.
The governing board as a whole completely supports the efforts and the work that the Senior Minister Search Committee has done. We're very proud of them and everything that they have worked through and stealing the nerve to even have this service today. I'm not at my prepared remarks because Chip gave me about 20 minutes notice. But 25? Okay. But the governing board members are sitting here today at the front, at the point of the fire drill. Feel free to talk to us outside if you have any questions for us. But you may notice that it's a rare spot for some of us to be sitting up front. Usually Wynn and Tim and myself gather in the back row there. And as the choir was singing today, we all kind of spoke to each other. They sound a lot better up close. It is so much better in the front row than it is in the back. So with that said, it is not the strongest of species that survive, nor is it the most intelligent species. It is the one that is most adaptable to change. Our friend, Charles Darwin, window number 2 to the left, if any of you can see it, is often given credit for saying that quote, but he never said it. No good quotes are that succinct. But he gets credit for it, and it does summarize his viewpoint quite well. Churches all over are facing challenges, finding ways to serve their community as the world evolves. Fountain Street Church is no different. Some of us were talking after a service recently, and one of the Fountain Streeters there spoke up and mentioned how 15 years ago, at their previous church, in its day a large church with a beautiful new facility, was facing a similar quandary. Do they want to double down and stay true to their tradition and history, or do they want to get messy with change and try to find an evolving place in their community? Your governing board, along with many governing boards in the past, recognize the need for evolutionary change to best serve our FSC community and the community as a whole. Many reports, strategy summaries, strategic plans, minutes going back decades have been prepared. Reviewing them has been comforting because in reviewing them, a lot of the points that they made we are discussing right now. So it shows that we are on the same track. And it's been even more encouraging because in reviewing them, a lot of the comments and the thoughts and the processes from previous governing boards, from previous committees, have made some better points than we even thought of. It's reaffirming to my belief that the collective wisdom of a group of Fountain Streeters is always far superior to those of a few. But even with all their great ideas in the past, evolutionary change has not substantially occurred here. The deliberate effort required to change an institution with Fountain Street's history and tradition is significant. And that's even if absolutely everybody wants change. But truth be told, not everybody wants change. Not changing has its attractions. You know where things are when you have to do them. You know what to expect when you walk into the building. You can probably see Wynn, Tim, and me sitting there in the back. Plus, you get that warm comfort of familiarity, recalling memories of years past in similar situations. Besides, change means messy. You're bound to make mistakes. There's going to be a lot of unknowns, and even if you do change, there's no guarantee it's going to be successful. Everyone is entitled to their opinion, and if exchanged civilly and openly, frequently differing opinions can lead to evolutionary change. Your governing board is committed to fostering the future of Fountain Street with evolutionary change. Today's service is a perfect example of it. I don't recall a service like that at any point in the past. And if you don't think, as I even acknowledge, that they were nervous about doing this service today, you're wrong. They clearly were. They acknowledged it. If you didn't think that when I heard of what they wanted to do today, I didn't think it could be a hot mess, well, you're wrong there too. It had uncomfortability and messy written all over it, and that's what's fun. And likewise, if you don't think that Reverend Christopher loves seeing a little bit of messy, you're wrong. I think he does, because messy leads to improvement. Since we first learned of Reverend Christopher's decision to tell us that we weren't ready for a new senior minister at this point, we have engaged Reverend Jody Benton to serve as a consulting interim minister here at Fountain Street Church. She has a limited time frame. Currently, she is engaged full-time at another congregation as their interim minister, but she will be giving us up to 5 hours a week to work with the governing board and to work with Reverend Christopher, addressing situations that we need to have addressed. Possibly, maybe next year, she might be even available for a part-time or a full-time position. And with their guidance, the governing board has already started reaching out to existing committees here at Fountain Street Church to take what we have learned from the Senior Minister Search Committee, to find ways for the committees to be more inviting and to refresh and update their ways of operation. And for the congregation itself, we've engaged Reverend Jody to provide monthly workshops that we can learn from and practice on a regular basis. The first monthly workshop that we're going to have is going to be on Saturday, October 29th at 9 a.m. in the morning. It's going to be provided by Zoom, in person, and it will also be recorded for later replay. And the title of that is going to be The Life Cycles of a Church. It's going to be an opportunity for us to be educated and to go through the process of how does a church start, grow, get tired, rejuvenate, or fade away. The governing board had an opportunity to have Reverend Jody give us a preview of that earlier this year, and we all found it very insightful and thought the whole congregation could benefit from it. Future workshops will be in November and December, and I believe we're also planning the fourth one in January already. Also, with Reverend Jody's counsel, we will arrange ways for the congregation to discuss high-level topics, such as, do we want to engage in evolutionary change at all? Because ultimately, though the governing board, the foundation board, and the senior minister search committee are going to present ways for us to engage in evolutionary change, it's going to be up to you to decide if we actually do it. The Fountain Streeter that had mentioned their previous church 10, 15 years ago was trying to decide between changing or tradition. Last month, that church had its final service, and the doors closed forever. It's not the strongest of the species that survive, nor is it the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is the most adaptive to change. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you, Senior Minister Search Committee, for your demonstration of vulnerability and willingness to show up in our community. One of the ways we show up every week as a community is through the ingathering of our gifts and our resources. And we know here at Fountain Street that 50% of those resources stay here so that this institution can continue to offer its ministries both internally and externally, and that 50% of the resources can be given directly beyond the walls of this church so that our love can be more expansive and join in the liberating and loving works of organizations in West Michigan that can take those gifts and return them tenfold. And so it is in the spirit of community and embodying community and showing up and gratitude that we will now take the offering. You are invited to join in our sending hymn. Please join in one voice as we sing our sending hymn together.